Hello and welcome to not quite another episode of Golden Truths, a Umineko podcast. It's just me today, Jen, here to bring you a couple of quick updates before we get on to the Tea Party episode. First of all, of course, the first thing I want to really do is thank everyone who's tuning in and listening to us go through the series. When I roped all of these bozos into this back in January, it must have been. I genuinely never would have imagined even the response we've gotten, which is there are dozens of you people out there. Dozens, multiple dozens of you people out there, and every single one of you who likes and listens and maybe even sends an email in or even just follows on Twitter or Tumblr really means the world to me. I'm really happy to share this series with more people and more likely give all you witches out there a little more fuel for your fire. The fire that I am in, that we are all in all of the time. Thank you all so much for listening. So after that, I have a very important plug to make here. If you do not follow the Twitter or the Tumblr, you may not know this, but me, Calum, and Matt recently guested on a different When They Cry podcast called When We Cry, the When We Cry podcast. We recently guested on an episode about, what else? Gender in Umineko. There are two halves to this episode. You can think of it kind of as a question arcs and an answer arcs, where the first episode is me and Calum and Matt and a bunch of people from When We Cry, all talking about gender up through the end of the question arcs. And then there is a separate episode without Calum and Matt, and it's just me and When We Cry, talking about, gender with all of the spoilers of the answer arcs for all of that. Really interesting episodes. I'm so glad to get to kind of take off my my veil of secrecy and scream into my microphone for an hour and a half about things I just can't talk about, not even right now, because some of you might not have finished the series by now. So please do go check those out. Again, you can find those on YouTube or on your preferred podcast application by searching When We Cry Podcast. Those words, not just When We Cry, those are too general. Search When We Cry Podcast. And while you're there and checking out those episodes that we guested on, go ahead and check out a bunch of their other stuff. We here at Golden Truths try to keep it a pretty laser focus on Umineko and a laser focus on this kind of like book club roundtable discussion kind of thing. Over at the When We Cry podcast, they're also doing roundtables over there, but they are covering everything under the sun. There's so many Higurashi podcasts. I believe there is a Go and Higurashi Go and Higurashi Satsu spoiler podcast, which you can check out. They are the entire kitchen sink. Big thanks to everyone over there, to Des, the ringleader, and of course Mushroom, who was the person who actually reached out to us and said, "Hey, can we do something together?" So much fun. Can't wait to contradict everything I said in those episodes when we actually get to them here on Golden Truths. And finally, just a little bit of housekeeping. So the next episode that will go up onto this feed will be our Tea Party episode, where we are going to talk about kind of bonus materials. Ryukishi07 and the team at 7th Expansion released a lot of kind of short stories at various comiquettes where they were tabling and selling Umineko that came out with certain basically guidebooks that would come out after the fact or alongside certain Umineko releases. So everything that we are able to read up through the start of episode 5, we are going to go through all of that and read all of that. If you have not heard of this stuff, I would really recommend checking it out. You can do that a couple different ways. You can go to the 7th Expansion fandom wiki, and they have an article there, or a page, Supplementary Materials of Umineko no Naku Koroni. And if you go there, you can find a list, and there are they're rough translations. They have rough translations there, but that's kind of what you're working with for a lot of this stuff. You can go there and find full translations of everything we'll be talking about. Or if you're a true super crazy fan like me, most of these are collected in the short story collection Umineko Tsubasa, which is a kind of visual novelification of these short stories. You can find an English version of that pretty easily by searching Umineko Tsubasa English, or you can just go to Umineko Tsubasa, that's Umineko, Umineko Tsubasa, tsubasa.github.io. And if you go there, you can find an English version of Tsubasa. If you are confused on the chronology, because of course you would be, because even the 7th expansion wiki doesn't have everything in perfect chronological order, in my Umineko Fit that I was in last year, compiled all that stuff to the best of my knowledge on my Tumblr, where I'm listing out, where it can be found in this visual novel collection. It can be found, this is where it is on the timeline, that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, you should go to bit.ly/Golden Truths Bonus. That's bit.ly/Golden Truths Bonus to get to that post I made on Tumblr breaking down everything we'll be talking about. And remember, we will be talking about everything that came out before the release of episode 5. So that's everything up through The Witch's Tanabata Isn't So Sweet, I think. You can go there and you can check it out and read along with us and come with your own thoughts to that episode. Oh, and all of these links will be in the show notes as well. If your podcast app or Spotify or whatever it is you're listening on, if it doesn't do links in the description, you can go to goldentruths.net, find the post for this episode, and all of the links there will work. And finally, a little brief explainer. So every episode that we have recorded and released so far, including the episodes that is just about to come out, the Tea Party episode, have all been recorded well in advance. I think the last episode was recorded in May. Like, literally, it's been a while. And quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of that. I really want to be able to, get emails in and respond, and, not that there's necessarily any kind of specific community forming around this podcast, but more just if anyone's listening in and they have some thoughts about our thoughts, or just thoughts about the books in general that they want to share, or some particular angle on something we've already talked about that we haven't considered yet. It's important to me that avenue is open, if anyone wants to take advantage of it. So we will ideally be releasing the next episode very, very, very soon. Of course, if you're listening to this when this episode is coming out, some very important Umineko days are coming up. I would really like to get the Tea Party out then, but it might slip past it because I have not done nearly as much work on it as I should have at this point. But once that's out, then we will be recording episode 5. So if you have any thoughts on episode 5, or you've already read episode 5 and you are like, oh, I can't wait for them to get to this part, or just anything in general, do send us an email. That email address again is goldentruthspod@gmail.com. Remember, that's plural, golden truths. goldentruthspod@gmail.com. We've already gotten several wonderful emails just kind of making oblique non-spoilers at cast members, and just, it's always great to hear from people, whether it is some deep analysis on the Japanese bubble economy, or it is just people telling us they like the show. So do send us an email there, and once we get around to recording episode 5, these episodes will be synced up. So hopefully, I would like it if those emails could begin to play a bigger part in the show. We'll see. That's pretty much everything I had to say. Thank you all again so much if you're listening to this, especially if you listened all the way through this and you didn't just listen to the first 5 seconds and then skip to the end. But fuck, dude, I get it too. I listen to a lot of fucking podcasts these days, so don't even fucking sweat it. Yeah, awesome having all you here, listening along, and hopefully getting a little more out of the book. I think that the series that is Umineko The Umineko series, as some people call it. I think that Umineko is like genuinely a really, really special series that has so many different tools in it for us to think about so many different kinds of problems, the arguments it makes, the characters, the narrative, the things it allows us to think and talk about. I think are really special and really worth examining in fine detail. I'm just some bitch with a theater degree, so it's not like I'm some academic coming to this, but I am really doing my best to constantly push the podcast further and further into asking questions of like, well, why is this here? What does this do? And hopefully everyone's finding some new stuff in there, or at least you're getting a new angle on it that maybe you haven't considered. Thank you all so much for listening. Past me, we'll see you very soon when I release the next episode of this podcast very soon. And then after that, we'll meet up again when the episode 5 podcast comes out. And from there, we will close out this book series and I'll have a great time. Thanks everybody so much. See you soon.